my love. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of March 9th to March 15th. Now, before we get into all that, I'm going to remind everybody that this is the last full week I'm running my special. I extended it to March 15th. I'm reminding everybody of that. This week is going to be the end of that sale. So all you got to do is go to the website, www.thespirituallyboujee.com. Whenever you get to the website, go to the little triple bar right here, go to astrological services. There's a couple different options here, but you specifically want to click the BOGO readings. Whenever you do that, you have the ability to book two 90-minute sessions for the price of one. And while you're doing that, remember, this package is only going to be available until March 15th. March 15th, the end of this week. What does that mean? That whenever I wake up on March the 16th, I'm going to go to the computer, I'm going to log on to the website, and I'm taking it off. It's not going to be an option anymore. So again, you got 1 week left to book your BOGO readings. And I'm reminding everybody that the whole reason I'm running this special for as long as I've had is because this is my way of raising money towards starting my nonprofit this year. I've got a nonprofit cooking. It's cooking, booking, cooking. I got some stuff cooking. I haven't told all you guys about it yet. I'm still wanting to line some things out. And since I didn't get certain things done before Mercury retrograde, like I literally felt a wall right whenever Mercury was starting to go into shadow. I'm like, oh, I didn't meet it. That means I gotta wait. And this whole vibration has just felt like a wall. And that takes me into the energy. That takes me into where we're at right now. Because we're in a very heavy pattern for a lot of people, deep soul searching pattern for a lot of people. And whenever it comes to this week, I don't feel like we have as many gut punches per se, but I feel like the little bits of the unfinished business, the little bits of the information, the thoughts of the past, the energies from the past, the motions of the past coming back to the forefront the way that they have. The memories, the situations, the relationships, the partnerships, the family dynamics, whatever it has been. And for some of you, you might actually be a lot like me, and it's just mundane stuff. Your unfinished business is you got to get some stuff caught up. You got to get some things finished. You got to actually do physical projects. It's not some deep seated emotional wound type of thing anymore. It's more along the lines of like, yeah, I've been procrastinating something. And I'm hoping more of you are in that mundane vibration. But no matter what, we're not making progress this week. It's kind of like a ho hum, ho hum, ho hum. There are little things that are going to be very interesting. And a lot of the vibration actually centers around Jupiter and what Jupiter in Cancer has been doing. Because at the beginning of the week, most exact on March 10th, Jupiter is going to end its retrograde. Jupiter turns direct. But as we go into this week, we still got a lot of planets that are in Pisces, that are in Jupiter's sign. And through parts of the week, we will even have the moon in Sagittarius, which is still Jupiter's sign. And for some of us, there's going to be these little ticks in the energy, little ideas, little conversations, little waves of something that in some ways it has this ability to shift a belief, shift a thought process, shift an awareness. This does not feel like a gut punch per se. It feels a little different than that. It feels eye-opening. For some people, it will feel relieving. For other people, it is going to be a turn in our own inner being, or turn in our behavior that we can either start finally focusing on something. We get a better idea, a better clue of something that we can put energy into, but it's putting it into, it's not launching it. This is two different things. Something we can start sinking our teeth into, but there's still a little bit of a bad taste in the air because we are still in eclipse season and we are still in Mercury retrograde. And we're going to be in this through the entire week. Now, whenever it comes to some of the lunar transits, we're going to spend part of the week with the moon in Sagittarius, part of the week with the moon in Capricorn. And while moon is going through those signs, It's going to be making aspects to everything going on in Aries. Neptune in Aries, Saturn in Aries, Venus in Aries, Chiron in Aries. But even in those aspects, they're all being hosted by Mars. And where is Mars? In Jupiter's sign. It's in Pisces. It's in Jupiter's sign. So it still comes back down to the elements around Jupiter. And when I talk about Jupiter, I talk about him. He is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. There are things that we need to understand, that we need to learn. For some of us, we need actual medical attention, like we need something around the doctor. We need them to give a diagnosis. We need them to finally get the bookings done. Sometimes during Mercury retrograde, it's like, I've been trying to get in with the doctor for 2 weeks and it's just not happening. Maybe they're having an issue. There's a turnaround in that regard. I think that there's going to be other turnarounds in regards to health and wellness in general. And remember, whenever it comes to your body, Jupiter rules the liver. Jupiter rules your sciatic nerve system. Whenever it comes to like your hips and all that, anything tied to that element of your nervous system. And it also has impacts of your lymphatic system. And one of the things I talked about at the beginning of the month was that if your body is feeling sluggish, maybe you need to do a cleanse. And if you are still feeling sluggish, there's a lot of emotions that get held in the liver. The liver is a very important part of the body. And there can be elements towards needing to cleanse and clear literal physical parts of your body. Getting guidance from, again, a doctor, a teacher, guru, nurse, a practitioner of sorts as to what you need to focus on from here. And again, it is an eye-opening, something that you can start to sink your teeth into, start to research, start to dip your toes in, start to mess around with. But we don't get to launch. This is not the same vibration. However, there is still a test in the energy. And I feel like a lot of people are going to have some peaks, some bumps whenever it comes to the test. And as we get closer to the end of the week, there can even be frustrations. Do I want to use that word? That doesn't seem heavy enough. But heavy isn't even the right word either. It doesn't seem profound enough. Because by the end of the week, we go into our fourth Mercury-Mars conjunction. Remember, we started this back in October. Back in October, we did the first in the series of 5. The first, the third, and the fifth are the connected ones. The second and the fourth ones are the connected ones. And there can be elements around this week that literally go back to parts of last year, most exact in November. But I'm still just going to round it to last year because some people don't even pay attention to the calendar. Sometimes it is what it is. You know who you are. Some of y'all don't pay attention to the calendar. I know this because when I start asking for dates in our sessions, you'd be like, well, you book in with a girl. Come on. We like our dates. Astrologers, we like our dates. Anyways, there's something that turns in the vibration. And even in the collective, I feel like we see a turn in regards to masses, a turn in regards to elements of wealth, especially the inflation element, turns in the way that we're seeing certain behaviors. And it's like, because of that behavior, you see a turn against, a turn away from. I've given you leniency. Now I must turn. Now I can't help you anymore. I can't wait on you to figure it out. I can't. That doesn't mean that there's not going to still be attempts to do something, because there will be. But for a lot of us, there's going to be a vibration of, I can't continue. And for some people, the realization of what you can't continue will come through when Jupiter turns direct. Again, most exact on the 10th. But by the end of the week, we get that fourth Mercury-Mars conjunction. Like the second one, it is also happening in a Jupiter-ruled sign. The second one happened in Sag. This one's happening in Pisces. Like the other one, it corresponded right around Jupiter's retrograde shifting. What I mean is the last one, the one that happened back in November, happened right as Jupiter turned retrograde. This one is happening right after Jupiter turns direct. There's still a very big Jupiterian vibration to what this week brings. And for some people, that is going to impact your faith. It is going to impact your beliefs. It is going to hit your moral compass and your moral code. And you will feel a shift in this area. There will be lessons to this week. For some people, yes, it can still be gut wrenching, but it really comes down to where you're out in your process more so than the actual vibration until we get to that Mercury Mars, because that one does feel like a gut punch. For a lot of people, that one's going to be a gut punch. It's going to have disruption to it. But that level of disruption, for some people, it is going to be something very mundane. For other people, it is going to be the fights, the tension, the frustration. There's going to be a shift in opinion when it comes to this week. And there's going to be people that they don't like the change. They don't like the direction. They don't like that you're withdrawing your support. They don't like that you're not waiting for them anymore. They don't like something. For some of you, it's just telling them, I'm not going to do it anymore. And that alone is the disruption. But whenever it comes to this week, there are lessons. There are little glimmers that show us tests in our faith, in our moral code, in our direction. Some of us, we are going to be the supports for other people, understanding what they must release, understanding what they let go of. We are not actually making the change, but we are the support. We are the Jupiterian person in someone's life, giving them the profound knowledge, giving them the profound ideas of what they have to focus on, giving them an alternative direction in their belief system from this point forward. Something that they can research, dabble in, start to sink their teeth into. But again, we're not having an explosive, profound vibration per se, but there still can be elements of disruption. And I feel like it becomes more exact at the end of the week during the Mercury-Mars conjunction, which is literally over the weekend. We're not going anywhere fast. Many people are going to find themselves kind of sitting and stewing in a lot of different things that they can't make heads or tails of. Trying to see forward, trying to see a different direction, trying to see a different idea is going to actually be difficult. And this is why I feel like we need to research something, we look into something. We are trying to learn something, but again, we can't launch it. We can't run with it. There is part of this vibration that we don't have the ability to run with. However, if you are solid in your faith, I do feel like there will be a lot of elements that speak to defending beliefs, defending ideas, defending how something is supposed to go. And whenever we become defensive, that is a part of what sparks the potential of disruption by the end of the week. Because some people are not going to like the defense mechanism. They're not going to like your opinion. They're not going to like what you have to say. They're not going to like what I have to say. It's a big part of the energy this week. And a lot of it focuses on Jupiter. Jupiter, again, is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. Jupiter has rulership over the liver, the hips, the nervous system, your lymphatic system, and your body. It also has rulership of the feet. I didn't say that before. I'm saying it now. Feet, 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 feet. But there can be other elements too in regards to wealth, prosperity, money, the masses. Jupiter is a planet of mass. We can literally talk about masses of people. And this is why I'm saying we can also see something in the collective where the entire collective feels the need to turn or shift something because of what's happening in world events. And I'm not going to get stuck on world events right now. I'm not. I don't need to. I showed you guys the history of things that had happened before when certain things happened. And now that we're in it, I'm like, oh no, that's right on time. Because that's what happened the before times. Why wouldn't it happen now? Don't want to get into any more of that. Okay. let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday and let's just talk about it. So, we're going to actually start the day with the moon still being in Scorpio. Our first transit is going to perfect between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And what's going to happen is we have the moon 27 degrees 57 minutes hitting this opposition to Uranus at 27:56. So, for some of us, there can be something that comes through unexpected on Monday morning, or something that we're going into that we're kind of excited for. I'm hesitant to say excited. You could just, I feel like we get like unexpected news, or we see something unexpected. You're scrolling on your phone and there's level of unexpected there. Like, oh, look, there's an event. I didn't even know this was a thing. Oh, look, so and so in town. I didn't even know they were coming back. I didn't know they were visiting. Like, it feels like that kind of thing. It just feels like, oh, I didn't know. Well, that's interesting. And it kind of captures your attention, but it kind of doesn't, because after the moon goes through this opposition to Uranus, and again, most exact between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m., the moon's actually going to go void. The moon goes void for the rest of the morning until 10:37 a.m. So going from 10:30 now to 11:30, and the moon is now in Sagittarius. The moon is now in Jupiter's sign. And over the next 48 hours, while the moon is in Jupiter's sign, Jupiter ends its retrograde. Now, the thing is, the moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception. When the moon goes through either Sagittarius, like it is now, or Pisces, they're in each other's signs. But the thing about when the moon's in Sagittarius, it feels like areas of our life, areas of the world, areas of what we know, what we believe, what we're reacting to, what we're responding to, these two areas that would not normally meet, would not normally work together, would not normally see eye to eye, have this way of layering on top of each other because of the mutual reception. And again, over the next 48 hours, Jupiter is going to end its retrograde while hosting a lot of planets in its sign, the moon being in Sagittarius, like I just said. And also, we got the Mars, North Node, Mercury, Sun going through Pisces. There is a shift in faith, a shift in beliefs, a shift that is meant to come through while the moon is going through Sagittarius. So somewhere between March 9th, March 10th, and parts of March 11th, there's a shift in something. And for some people, it's going to be rather exciting. For some people, it's going to be a little bit more uplifting. It's actually going to give a little bit of hope. For other people, it's going to be little hits and tests of a trigger that lets us know where we've been waiting for something to go a certain way. We're not going to wait the same way. We're not going to offer support in the same way. We're not going to do something the same way. Literally, over the course of these few days, we will feel a turn in our own vibration. But for some people, while the moon is in Sagittarius and Jupiter is stationing to end its retrograde, there still can be health impacts. I can't be any more clear about that. So be aware of how this energy is impacting your mind, your body, just as much as it is in the collective, because all things are on the table. Be aware of that. The moon is now in Sagittarius and it gets busy really, really fast. So here we go. Here's the moon in Sag. As soon as it goes into Sag, it's going to start its trine to Neptune. That feels the most exact between 12:30 and 3:30 p.m. So got it now at 1:30. Here's the moon, 1 degree 26. Here's Neptune, 1 degree 21. This feels like there could be something that is either inspiring that is coming through, or something that is very, very confusing that is coming through. If it's inspiring, it feels like it leads to a set of steps that move in and impact directly afterwards. Movable steps, excitable, air quotations on excitable, but driven, motivated. Like there's a little bit more movement in the air whenever the moon is in a fire sign compared to anything else. So there feels like there could be elements of excitement here, or excitability, but there can also be a little bit of flustering in this too, because again, we do start this with the moon hitting a trine to Neptune. The moon goes through the trine to Neptune between 12:30 and 2:30, between 3:30 and 5:30. So I'm going to put this now to 4. Here's the moon 2 degree 55, and here's Saturn 2 degrees 48. So you can see this right here. The moon hits the trine to Saturn. There can be something about the role, something about the responsibility, something about our pattern of something about an elder that we need to be taking care of. There could be some kind of judgment or some level of like issuance of rules of some sort, or issuance or questioning or ideas or desires around like how something needs to be taken care of. but that doesn't have to be someone. It could be something. So it still feels like it has the addressments of a process, rules, procedure. And again, there still can be elements of confusion because we're not so far off of that trine from Neptune. There's always elements in this energy, like we're just not seeing everything clearly. Okay, so the moon hits that trine to Saturn as we continue forward into the evening time between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. Got this now at 7:30. Here's the moon, 4 degrees 24, hitting its trine to Venus. Venus being in Mars's sign. Remember, this is the goddess of love playing with all of Mars's arsenal, all of it. She got access to everything, and she has no problem using it if she has to. And there can be elements, especially whenever we have these little aspects to Venus, where we have a defensive energy kind of coming through, or we're trying to understand something, and it's like we're trying to understand 2 + 2 = fish. Like it's one of those types of things. We can be appreciative of the action someone is taking to get something taken care of. And that can be one mundane way that this comes through. But in another way, we can be looking at like how somebody's pushing something forward in a way that they wouldn't normally do. Because again, we are in a Mercury retrograde. There's a lot of people doing stuff that they would not normally do. And it's like, why? And there can even be triggers of insecurity while we're trying to understand something, because while the moon is going through its trine to Venus, it's also starting a sextile to Pluto. Now, this is actually felt the most exact between 7 and 9 p.m. because Pluto and Venus are going to go through an exact sextile as we go further into the week. So there is a vibration here that feels like we're trying to understand something, the actions of someone, the beliefs of someone, the desires of someone in some way. But it's also got a little hint of insecurity, a little hint of fear, a little hint of a power struggle because we have the Pluto element while we're going through this. Some of the things that we're seeing in action, some of the things that we're seeing in the communication, there can be a trigger of insecurity. And this element right here can give foreshadowing of additional energies that are going to be a part of the 10th. So just be aware of that. All right. As we continue into the later parts of the evening between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. So now I got it now 10:30. The moon is still in Sagittarius, and this fire sign is going to hit this square to Mars. Now, the thing about Mars is hosting Neptune, Saturn, and Venus. The moon made aspects to all three of them before it hit the square to Mars. There can be a buildup of a lot of different things that kind of gone through the afternoon that once we get into the evening time, they have a question of action. We do start to question, like, why are you acting this way? What is going on? What brought this up? What's brought all these situations? Now, you could have 4 or 5 different situations that happen throughout the day that once you get into the evening time, we're still trying to wrap our head around a slew of things, and it starts to feel like a pressure point. We can see other people having some level of a pressure point, and we can start to ask, where is this even coming from? Because the moon squaring to Mars right here can have a challenge to it. But I'm also looking at the fact the moon is squaring Mars and Jupiter is ending its retrograde. Any elements of confusion that kind of pinpoints throughout the day, pops up throughout the day, might be met with a challenge that again signals something internally that something can't continue in the same way because Jupiter is stationing. And there's a lot of us that there's something that we've been waiting on from another person that once we reach some element of a challenge, this can be challenging. It doesn't have to be a pure challenge. It really comes down to if you have emotional control or not, because some people don't. Let's be fair about that. If you have emotional control, then we can handle this. But if you don't have emotional control, then this can be very volatile. It doesn't have to be, but it also speaks that shift in support, that shift in faith, that shift in opinion, that shift in a belief that is in the underlying parts of the vibration. Are we immediately shifting? Some might, but not everybody. It just kind of depends on how quick you are to an opinion. But after the moon hits the square to Mars, which wraps up basically by 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going into Tuesday. We're going into the 10th. And again, this is whenever we go through the day, Jupiter's going to end its retrograde. Now, this is going to happen way later in the day, but still we need to talk about it. As we go into the overnight hours between 1:48 and 2:04, so I got this now at 1:30, Pluto will hit its exact sextile to Venus. Again, this can trigger an insecurity. Anything tied to Pluto, though, it can have that mundane aspect in regards to a plumbing thing or something going on behind the walls, behind the scene. Like it can have a mundane aspect of like literally something going on behind the walls. It can have a plumbing thing, but that for a lot of other people, it's not the mundane stuff. It is a trigger of either transformation because it's Pluto, or it's triggers of insecurity. I am more likely to believe insecurities because Pluto is in a new area of the sky where he hasn't been before. So a lot of the times he's bringing new things into the vibration. And again, one or two things that can happen through the case of Monday and Tuesday can trigger a shift in our fluidity, a shift in our emotions, a shift in our beliefs, a shift in how we support certain people. Doesn't have to happen just right here. Again, we had a little bit of foreshadowing to parts of this vibration on Monday when the moon was a part of this energy, but now we're seeing the exact sextile between Pluto and Venus. As we continue into the actual daytime, so we're going to put this right after lunch between 1 and 3 p.m. Got it now at 2:30. Here's the moon, 13 degrees, 48 minutes, hitting a square to Mercury, 13 degrees, 32. This was exact closer to about 2 p.m., just so everybody knows that. And there is an interesting part of this vibration because, again, Mercury is retrograde in Jupiter sign. The moon is in Jupiter sign. But Mercury being retrograde means even though the moon's in the higher authority of this square, Mercury being retrograde kind of means it's moving towards the moon. So it feels like there is an acceptance for a lot of people of change, something we hadn't considered, something from the past coming up. But it's like, oh yeah, I need to work on that. I need to help with that. Something coming back around, something coming to the forefront, that it's like accepting accountability. And for some people, when you see another person accept accountability, especially in an area before where they would have never accepted accountability, it's like, oh, like it hits your system differently. Like, I expected a fight. I expected to be mad. I expected a very different response from you. I expected deflection. I expected projecting. I expected anything else but you just going, oh yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have done that. We could have done it differently. Yeah, it was a mistake. And that alone feels like a different kind of shock to the system. We can have little bits that kind of come through that it's just, it shifts our belief. It shifts our faith. It shifts a hope. It shifts a perspective. And I love the fact that we actually get the moon squaring Mercury the way that we do, because the very next thing that's going to happen, which is more exact in the evening time, is that's whenever Jupiter is going to end its retrograde. By 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, so bumping this now to 10:30, Jupiter goes direct. An adaptation, something from the past, the energies that are coming through, the vibration that we are trying to learn from, trying to understand, trying to heal from, instigates an unforeseen part of the vibration that allows for us to either accept something that we hadn't been able to accept before, realize something we haven't been able to realize before, work through something we've never been able to work through before. Because the way it's coming through, the way the energy has been bringing the past back up, the way Mercury has been scraping the bottom of the ocean, bringing up all the stuff back to the surface, we now have the ability to respond from a different mentality than before. So I'm hopeful for a lot of people, but I also feel like if you have to approach somebody about a past situation, they might not necessarily be so profound and open to certain things, but it's like you make one last attempt at something. It doesn't all have to be exact at this moment, but it doesn't. It feels like we make one last attempt to make something make sense, to really make somebody understand something. And if they're just a brick wall, you know that it's never going to change from that point. Like it's so much of an eye-opening energy that it just kind of shifts. Like, I've always tried to be supportive. I've always tried to, give you the benefit of the doubt. And now I know you're never going to change. And that's okay. Because I can just cut this off and love you from a distance if I have to. If I have to. Now, again, Jupiter ends its retrograde 10:30 at night, at least here for us here in the States. It's in the evening time. Some people are not going to feel this as they go through the day. More people are going to feel this vibration when they wake up the next day. There's going to be something that kind of comes through our dreams, comes through our energy, comes through our thought process that kind of impacts the ego. And the reason I say specifically ego here is because when we get into the morning time, between 3:30 and 5:30 a.m., yes, I got it at 5:30, the moon, 2114, has just went through an exact square with the sun. We have just had our last quarter moon. And now from this point forward, we're in a wind down to wrap up eclipse season. So there can be something profoundly that comes through that shifts our faith, that shifts our belief, that shifts the way that we understood something. It brings a different kind of awareness. We have the doctor, the guru, the teacher shedding light on something. We have some kind of idea of why a reaction in the body is happening a certain way. Something shifts in the overnight hours from the 10th into the 11th. And I feel like a lot of people will wake up on the 11th feeling different. Their mind will be different. Some will have downloads in the overnight hours, and the shift in perspective will feel eye-opening in a lot of different ways. This shift is necessary. It's hopeful. It's helpful, for lack of a better way to say it. And there's something very profound internally felt by a lot of people as we wake up on the 11th. And I feel like that shift really amplifies as we go through the quarter moon. We end the day on the 10th after a moon Mercury square and after Jupiter turns direct. We're waking up the next morning, first full day of a direct Jupiter, with the moon giving reflection to our confidence, to our ideas, to our identity, to certain people as an individual. Can you have outside sources kind of giving an impact here? Absolutely. Is it going to be internal for a lot of people? I want to honestly say more than you'd realize. This is an internalized vibration of shift, of change, a difference in our confidence, and especially an awareness of something we need to release. So we're going to keep this going. As we get into the actual daytime hours, going into early lunch between 11 and 1 p.m., so I got this now at 11:30, the moon in Sagittarius, 24 degrees, is going to hit a trine to Chiron, the wounded healer. There's a lot of things that speaks to a shift and healing, a shift and a release, a shift to not do something the same way, to quit waiting for something. And when the moon kind of comes through and hits this trine to Chiron, we can be talking about what it takes to fix a situation, if a situation can ever be fixed, if a situation can ever be healed, what it would take to overcome parts of the wounds that have come through recently, what it would take to overcome what's been holding us back for so long. There could just be all of these elements around, again, the wounds, the pain, the past, but also what it would take to create solutions if a solution could be understood. And whenever the moon is in a trine, it's in a supportive energy. So this element speaks to additional levels towards our healing process or understanding just what created the wound. It's conversations around the solutions, conversations around the wounds, conversations around the solutions, conversations around the wounds. Be aware of that. Some people are not going to like the conversations. It is what it is. Now, I want to be clear as we continue something else. After the moon goes through this trine to Chiron, it's going to go void for a few hours. And I feel like a lot of people, if we are going to have issues in the body, a restlessness starts to build as the moon goes void that cannot be explained. And I really get nervous whenever it comes to elders. But at 11:08 p.m., so I got this now from 10:30, here's the moon 29 degrees, to 11:30, the moon goes into Capricorn. Now, over the next few days, while the moon is in Capricorn, the moon is in Saturn's sign. Saturn is in Mars' sign, and Mars is about to hit a conjunction to the North Node. I want you to be very, very focused in, or be prepared to hone in on some kind of responsibility for some people, a role for some people, where we need to be productive about something in some ways. But for other people, we got to be watching health issues, especially whenever it comes to blood. So blood sugars, blood pressure, this type of thing. We got to watch people and their heads. And again, this can go into blood pressure stuff, because whenever you get high blood pressure, it comes through a lot of times as like a massive headache in some way. There can be things around that, but we also need to watch the elders and how they're reacting to this energy, because Mars, the god of war, is going to be making a conjunction to the North Node, i.e., the head of the dragon, while the moon is going through Saturn's sign. And regretfully, Saturn is now in Mars' sign. Saturn is now in Aries. And the impacts that this can do repeatedly to elders, I cannot emphasize enough. And I feel like a lot of us are going to have to shift our awareness to either, again, a role or responsibility of some sort, and or we're going to have to shift to a focus around our elders. That can be the boss, that can be grandpa, that can be people in positions of authority. It doesn't have to be our boss in particular, but it's like we recognize them as an authority figure of some sort. So therefore, we're paying attention to them. And the mood drastically shifts, the tone drastically shifts once that moon goes into Capricorn, because we have something else we're going to be focusing on that we were not aware of. For a lot of people, it's going to be a surprise, and we're not necessarily going to like how the surprise is going to go. There's layers to this. We'll keep it going. All right, going into back into this. Okay, the moon's in Capricorn. It's in Saturn's sign. And again, over the next 48 hours, Mars is going to hit this conjunction to the North Node. I want people to be aware of how your body is feeling. And if your anxiety is spiking, chill your shit, because that anxiety spike can result in something else. But for a lot more people, there's a productive energy that immediately steps in. It's not going to be easy, but it's literally how we're going into the 12th. I know I had it on the 11th still the entire time, but it's literally how we're going into the 12th. And in the overnight hours, we go into a series of transits that, again, kind of test parts of the vibration. And this is where we can have a little bit of challenge. Between 1 and 3 a.m., got this now at 1:30, the moon is going to hit a square to Neptune. You can see that right here. As we continue into the earlier morning times, the moon will hit a square to Saturn and Venus, all back to back to back, before it hits a sextile to Mars. So I again feel like there could be something that we need to be aware of: what's going on with the elder, what's going on with the boss, certain things around people in positions of power, and where there are challenges around this. And there can again be little things that kind of come to the surface that we were not anticipating. The moon going through all the square, but we start with the moon hitting the square to Neptune. There can be something that comes to you that just doesn't make sense. It kind of feels funny. There's something that's kind of confusing. For other people, it's kind of inspiring. Hey, I got this idea. What do you mean you got this idea? This idea we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And for some people, it will come through as ideas. It can be inspiration of something that we need to change. There can be inspiration, but for other people, it's not going to be inspiration. It's going to be a chain of events that leads us into focusing on something that was not on our radar before. Be aware of that. Okay. The moon hits that square to Saturn. You can see this, or Neptune, you can see this right here, between 4:30 and 6:30 a.m. Got it now at 5:30. Here is the moon 3 degrees 11 minutes. Here is Saturn 3 degrees 6. So it's real close to that 5:30 a.m. spot where it's the most exact. This energy can feel very, very challenging. And again, pay attention to if you go into the office and we have some kind of news from the boss, or you start asking questions of the boss, but it comes with some kind of sulky behavior or some kind of negative behavior, because there can be a challenge to this. Is it a challenge for everybody? No. I think it's interesting that Mars is coming into a conjunction to the North Node, because as much as I'm aware of the health impacts of this, that again, there could be something around people's heads, things in their blood and their body in that regard. There can also be things that come through that ignite a passion and a drive. So there can be inspiration in this also, but this inspiration is going to still be met with a challenge by the end of the week. So just be aware of what's coming through, because this is definitely a mood shift once that moon is in Capricorn. Now, as we continue this into the actual daytime, between 2 and 4 p.m., the moon will come in and hit a square to Venus. You can kind of see this here. We're getting close. There's 2:30. Here's the moon, 7 degrees 41. Here is Venus, 7 degrees 54. It's closer to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. While the moon is starting its square to Venus, it is also starting that sextile to Mars, and Mars is getting closer to the North Node. So here's the moon going through the exact sextile. It's still not that far off from the square from Venus. The moon is in the higher authority, so it's giving an idea of certain directions because the moon is hitting the sextile to Mars. The Venus is in Mars' sign. So there is something about a challenge, some type of reaction, some type of information, something that is shifting, an awareness around the physical elements of something. So, I mean, physical beauty, like this type of thing, the taste of something, or if we've liked something or not. There can also be something that we have defense mechanisms around whenever it comes to the moon square to Venus. But again, parts of this can actually be deeper underlying issues, and that defense mechanism is more of like a projection mechanism. We're not getting a whole lot accomplished this week. It's just a series of events and challenges that shifts certain moods and behavior. And as we get into the evening time, again, we go from the moon squaring Venus, hitting this sextile to Mars, to also hitting a sextile to Mercury. This is going to go the most exact between 9 and 11 p.m. So I got this now at about 9:30. Here's the moon, 11 degrees, 12 minutes. Here is Mercury, 11 degrees, 33. It's closer to 10 p.m. whenever it's exact, but this is fine. If you had a busy day, a challenging day, a lot of things going on throughout the day, this would not surprise me. And again, sometimes we get into the end of the day and we need to talk something out, and we need other people to be receptive of what's going on. Some people need to come back around, and we need to have certain conversations with them about what's going on in the energy, what's going on in the universe. Why is this going the way that it is? Why are people behaving the way that they are? Like, what is going on? Don't be surprised by that. This feels very receptive, but it also feels like emotional purging, at least on one side. The moon in Capricorn doesn't necessarily want to be emotionally purging. It more wants to put something into order and get something set straight. But Mercury needs to talk something through because the feelings are too much. We're not being logical. The feelings are too much, and I need to get this out. And there is strategic ways to do parts of this. And for some people, we are also talking about an idea of something we want to change that we're going to be very motivated by. Because again, Mars is starting its conjunction to the North Node. It's not exact yet, but it's building. It's happening. We're moving towards it. It's coming through. So don't be surprised by the ideas, but don't be surprised by the other effects either, because all of it's real. All right. We're going to bump this into the 13th. We're going to get into Friday. And in the early morning hours between 4 and 6 a.m., I got this now at 4:30, the moon at 14 degrees, 45 minutes is hitting this opposition to Jupiter. The first aspect to Jupiter, little bitty baby lunar aspect to Jupiter since Jupiter has turned direct. There's something in this energy of where we need to be productive, but we also see the other side has made a change, that they don't feel the same way, that they're not waiting for something in the same way. They've decided to go in another direction. They don't want to continue the same kind of path and pattern. They're not going to just sit and wait anymore. And there can be little discussions about who's in charge of what we're not waiting on, what we're not going to do the same way anymore, but what we are going to do differently from here. And a big part of that energy can also still influx around things around health. Mars is getting really close to that conjunction to the North Node. So I'm not going to ignore the health stuff this week, but there can also be that level of inspiration that's coming through of like, I have this profound idea of something I want to do, something I want to change. And it's getting the input of another side, of the other person, what role that they would take in it, where we can learn something from this energy, where we can test something from here, what we believe can be real, what we believe can be right from here. There's a very big shift in our mental energy, especially around beliefs this week. The moon hits that opposition to Jupiter. As we continue to progress, Mars is going to continue to get closer to the North Node. It's really in the conjunction. I'm just saying, like, it's in the exactness type of thing. We're in this energy no matter what, and I just don't know how this is going to manifest for a lot of people, because for some people I do feel like it's the ideas, the inspiration, the drive, a passion of sorts. For other people, I'm very concerned about the health impacts, but I can also see like elements of people becoming very, very blinded to something because, again, Neptune's in Aries, so there's some blinding to some of the Mars stuff right now. It's hopeful, but at the same time it's blinding. All right. As we go through the day, we don't have a whole lot of transits until we get into parts of the evening time. So I'm going to get this bumped to 9:30. And what's going on here is the moon, 23 degrees, 25 minutes, is hitting a sextile to the sun. We're winding down to the new moon in Pisces. It's going to happen next week. We're winding down part of the energy towards wrapping up eclipse season. And over the course of the day, Mars did make its conjunction to the North Node. So we are still in this idea level of energy as we kind of progress into the daytime. But whenever the moon hits this sextile to the sun, this is not heavy energy. The moon is still trying to be productive. It's in Capricorn. We've had a tone shift. We have a new, burning energy inside of us. We've had a new inspiration towards something, or we've had a new thing going on with the boss or the elder of some sort, a new role, a new responsibility, a new challenge of sorts that is starting to come through. And there just needs to be like consideration. There needs to be conversation. The moon's hitting a sextile to the sun. There needs to be a little bit of levels of support. In other ways, we need to talk about how we're feeling about something and if there can be a solution. Why do I say that? Because if I bump this to 11:30, between 11 p.m. on the 13th and 1 a.m. on the 14th, so this is one of those transits that takes us from one day to the next, the moon is going to hit a square to Chiron. And again, there's something about what we want to find a solution on, some kind of challenge of sorts, some kind of wound, something about the past, something about what's been more present. There can be a little bit more of a present energy in regards to creating a new wound for some people, or how somebody has hurt us in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a deep wound that takes years to heal, but something is bothering us and we need to find a solution. We're trying to find a solution. We're talking through what's come up so far, and there might not be an immediate solution. There really might not. Again, the moon hits the square to Chiron. It starts on the 13th. It takes us into the 14th. So some of us are just having a real late Friday night, looking at different opportunities, going into the overnight hours, trying to figure something out, trying to, shift our motivation, so to speak, trying to get something determined, but again, not necessarily getting everything figured out the way that we are hoping. The moon hitting this square to Chiron. I think that there's a lingering this time, where before there feels to be like there was an understanding. Now there's a lingering, because as we get closer and closer to Mars and Mercury coming into their conjunction, and this is actually going to be exact on Sunday, but as we're getting closer and closer to it, I feel like parts of what starts to bubble to the surface, parts of the ideas that are bubbling to the surface, parts of what is happening in someone's health, because it's going to be health related for some people, but for other people, parts of the motivation that's coming through. The motivation is offering a solution, but we don't necessarily know how we're going to roll with it quite yet, or we haven't been able to get it off our chest quite yet as to what that's actually going to mean. And for a lot of people, as we go through the weekend, this is whenever we're going to start to really hone in a little bit more on what is potentially going to be disruptive. I'm going to go ahead and bump this into the morning time. Between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m., the moon in Capricorn, 28.4, is going to go through a trine with Uranus, 28.5. You can see that right here. We're basically exact. Something that comes through unexpectedly first thing in the morning, some kind of idea that we have, something that we're wanting to focus on, something that we need to work towards, something that's kind of coming through. We can again have some levels of inspiration in some ways, and other people it's going to be some challenges, but there can be something that is slowly starting to come to the surface that we were not anticipating. Or we wake up and again, we're scrolling on our phone and something comes through that we are not anticipating. You wake up and you're having an unexpected person outside your house, some unexpected news at your door. I'm like, what is this? Where did this all come from? What happened? The moon hits the trine to Uranus. So you can see that right here. And after the moon hits the trine to Uranus, the moon is going to go void until 10:14 a.m. So I'm going to bump this now to 10:30, and the moon goes into Aquarius. Now, once the moon goes into Aquarius, there is a mood. Oh, there's such a mood. It is stagnant, it is stale. There's some kind of mood kind of coming through. And again, parts of the weekend have elements that need to be disruptive, but this is not easily foreseen disruption. This is post Jupiter turning direct disruption. This is post Mars hitting the conjunction to the North Node and either telling us the health effects that we need to focus on or telling us the other parts of the energy in regards to the inspiration that we're about to focus on. There's something that had to shift over the course of the week that now we're either very, very stuck on, being very, very stubborn about, or we're finally going to hear some things that have been boiling under the surface for a very, very long time. And there are parts of this weekend that are going to be triggering. They're going to be disruptive. They're going to have some fights and frustration. And there's going to be some people that they do not want to accept accountability because from their perspective, they're right, you're wrong, and I don't want to play this game with you. Don't even try it. But there is an underlying vibration towards something that we need to talk about, towards something that we finally need to face, towards something that we need to deal with that a lot of people are not going to want to deal with. They're not going to want to know. And the noise level is going to be real thick and stubborn as soon as the moon goes into Aquarius. That's what it feels like to me. Okay, we're going to keep this going. The moon is now in Aquarius. And as the moon goes into Aquarius, it starts to make some little baby aspects. It's going to hit a sextile to Neptune. That's going to be felt the most exact between noon and 2:30. I gave a little bit of a bigger window for that one. So here's the moon, 1 degree, 11 minutes. Here's Neptune, 1 degree, 33. After the moon hits the sextile to Neptune, as we go into the afternoon, it will start its actual sextile to Saturn. There can be something in the early lunchtime hour, we'll just call it that lunchtime hour, not early parts of the day, but that we're not entirely clear, we're not entirely motivated, we're not entirely sure of what's going on. It's almost like you can sense something's coming, you can sense there's something in the vibration, but nothing's happening at that moment. We might be a little confused by some things, or we might have some things that are popping up that just don't make a whole lot of sense. But that's just little pop-ups in the energy. I don't feel like this is part of the bigger vibration for everybody, unless we're just discovering something that in that confusion, it leads us going somewhere that has the extra elements. That could be how it kind of plays out. But the moon hits the sextile to Neptune again between noon and 2:30 p.m. Between 4 and 6 p.m., got it now at 4:30, the moon is going to start its sextile to Saturn. But please note, as the moon is starting a sextile to Saturn, it's also starting a conjunction to Pluto. That's going to also happen throughout the day. So the moon sextile to Saturn is felt the most exact between 4 and 6 p.m. Between 6:30 and 8:30, the moon's going to start its conjunction to Pluto. And while this is happening, we're getting closer and closer to Mars's conjunction to Mercury. I really feel like there's a big part of this vibration that speaks to something that has been boiling below the surface for a long time, that is going to come out for a lot of people. And again, that disruptive energy is either going to show us that somebody else is never going to change. Some of us are going to finally feel like we can tell someone, I have a different idea. I have a different belief. I don't want to do this thing the same way anymore because you're never going to change. And by God, why should I change? Some people struggle with the idea of change and adaptation. I feel like there's going to be this eye-opening energy about stubborn people not wanting to make any kind of an adaptation while the moon is going through Aquarius this week. There's tension. There's fighting. I know I'm stuck on something. I'm also kind of blocked with parts of this because I don't know where the arguments are going to be. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know for me if it's the arguments or if it's going to be the health stuff, because mom has been a lot of fun lately. I just don't know which way it's going to go, but like I'm anticipating like This is going to be a very eye-opening part of the vibration in regards to either what's going on with the elder, where our role is, what our responsibility, how we've been feeling about something, what we believe to be true. The moon hitting the conjunction to Pluto has a very big trigger in the energy. It can trigger a trauma, it can trigger insecurities, it can trigger a fear, it can trigger awareness around death, but it can also be who's responsible for who's going to take care of the plumbing leak if it's a potentially mundane thing. I don't feel like it's a mundane thing for a lot of people, though. I really don't. I feel like there is going to be elements of an insecurity or a power dynamic shift that comes through with a very big set of disruptive news. Because again, Mercury and Mars are getting closer to their conjunction. So we're going to keep this going. After the moon's conjunction to Pluto, there's nothing else going on to the 14th. We're going to bump this into Sunday. We're going to get into the 15th. And in the overnight hours between 2:59 and 3:22 a.m., so I got this now at 2:30, Mars and Mercury are going to hit their conjunction. This was building up the last few days. And it really comes down to, I feel like with Mars, what that Mars North Node energy did earlier in the week to impact, influence, give extra details to whatever this Mars Mercury conjunction is. Again, parts of this can tie back to what was going on in November, but it's not going to tie back for everybody. But we actually finally get this fourth of the five, the fourth in the series of five Mercury Mars conjunctions. And it can still speak back to stuff that was getting triggered for us last year. This is the disruptive energy. This can be lies. This can be fighting. This can be car accidents. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. This can be disruptions with technology, disruptions in radio, disruptions in that type of thing, disruptions in communication all the way around. But this can also be the tension. This can also be fighting. This can also be a very big acting out other A words that I don't want to use. Fisticuffs, we'll say stuff like that. I'm being very obnoxious by saying that. There can be tension. There can be disruption. Mars is the god of war. Pick your disruption. And a lot of this Mars god of war stuff and the disruption that it's coming through has got deep emotional seeds to it. So for some of us, we're going to have to deal with some wounds. But it's like we're going to also tell someone something that they haven't heard before that they would not be anticipating if that is the case. Now, I'm going to keep this going. And in the morning time, so literally sunrise time frame, between 6:30 and 8:30 a.m., the moon at 11 degrees of Aquarius is going to hit a sextile to Venus. And where is Venus? Venus is in Mars's sign. And where is Mars? Still in its conjunction to Mercury. Just because it didn't happen, something didn't happen at the exact time that a transit happened, means absolutely nothing. Because the human effect is anything that's going to be disrupted is still going to be disrupted. You cannot avoid it. And I feel like this week is unavoidable disruptions. It is the stuff that we did not see, so unforeseeable disruptions, but also unavoidable disruptions. And whenever the moon hits this sextile to Venus, there is something about the appearance. There is something about the taste. There is something about somebody's actions and what they're doing in their shift of appearance, how they're working on themselves, how they're taking something forward, what they're doing in certain ways. But for other people, it is going to be that need to support someone because of the disruption that is underway. And I do mean underway. The entire weekend, we're going to have the element of disruption. The Mercury-Mars conjunction encompasses the entire weekend. But I still maintain there's something in the downloads that must happen after Jupiter turns direct and after Mars goes through the conjunction to the North Node. Because Mars's conjunction to the North Node is happening in Jupiter's sign. So again, there are certain things that must be revealed. They must come to light in a very specific way. They must manifest in a specific way. And for some people, it will be a health thing. It is not avoidable in any type of way. If you've already had elements towards your health or somebody else's health, because it isn't always yours, don't be surprised by that. but also understand that there's more than one way that this can come through. And I do anticipate with the Mercury Mars conjunction, there's going to be a shift of opinion because Mercury is retrograde that is going to be met with disruption because it's Mars. And Mars is now hosting a lot of fueling energy in Aries, fueling a belief, fueling an idea, fueling a direction, fueling a role, fueling a responsibility, fueling a dynamic in one way, shape, or form. And for some people, it will be an inspiration. The Mars North Node conjunction, the Mars Mercury, Jupiter turning direct, it will be an inspiration. It would be like writer's block falling away and creative juices are just flowing. That level of inspiration. It is going to be something like, I can finally see how this is going to lay out. And it is going to be something that is helpful to our hearts and our faith and this type of element. But for other people, and it really comes down to what you've been dealing with through the Mercury retrograde, through Mercury and Pisces all the way around. Because Mercury and Pisces has again been scraping the bottom of the ocean, reminding you of things. But it is also trying to show you there's a deeper root cause. And whenever we get to the deeper root cause, again, this has popped up, kind of like what I said in the Moon and Virgo video. This has popped up. This has been going on. And I can deal with this and I understand this, but really this popping up reminds me that I'm still mad about this. And because I'm still mad about this, there's something I need to work through. And for some people, you're going to try to work through parts of it this week because you're going to be tired of being in the funk. The funk lingers after a while. And we don't necessarily want to be in a funk. We want to feel different. We want to feel better. We want to feel more hopeful. And that means, for some of us, that means trying to have conversation with certain people that they've not wanted to have, that they have avoided. We're trying to tell certain things to people that they don't want to be held accountable for. And it's going to be like beating our head against the wall sometimes. Like, look, I don't know how we got to this point, but I'm not playing this game with you. I don't want to continue this pattern. I don't want to play this game with you. I don't want to do this the way that this is starting to unfold. You don't want to do anything I want to do. You always got a problem. No. It turns into a different series of frustration that can be eye-opening for a lot of people and make you aware that they're never going to change. Your bigoted uncle is never going to change. Your mom and that deep Southern racism is never going to change. You either have to love the versions of them that you can and keep them at arm's length, or you have to make certain decisions towards cutting them off. Not everybody gets the chance to cut people off. Some people have to go no contact for a while, but they always have to let them back in for one reason or another. There are kids involved. There are other family members involved. There's a reason for it. And the full cutoff is not, you're not capable of it for one reason or another. And I'm not saying this that in the negative sense of like, you're not choosing yourself. I'm saying this because you literally don't feel like it's a good option. You're stuck with your kid's parent in some way. You're stuck in some part of that vibration. And I get that. But there's an element of this week that is meant to be very, very eye-opening and a click in regards to what's not going to change, but what needs to change. And for so many people, it is around a belief. It is around the money. It is around our faith. It is around an ideal, not an idea, an ideal, idealism, a philosophy, a direction, a hope. Jupiter has such a different perspective. And there is something we are meant to learn. Even in the disruption, we are meant to learn it. And there will be elements of this week where we struggle with the cutoff. But for other people, there will be inspiration. And I'm hoping for more people there that there's inspiration. I really am. I'm tired of beating a dead horse and saying, oh, it's just going to be so bad. It's going to be so rough. It's emotionally rough. It is emotionally rough. We are already in it. We know it now. And we're all very, very tired of it being emotionally rough. Now show me the reward. Show me why all the emotional roughness was necessary. Show me the reward. Show me what I work towards now so it doesn't have to be so rough anymore. And again, I feel like for some people, when Mars hits that conjunction to the North Node following Jupiter turning direct, it feels like an inspiration that we very much will get stuck on in the weeks following. Now, why do I say get stuck on in the weeks following? So a little foreshadowing. When Mercury starts to station, it will station in a long-term conjunction to the North Node. Now, it'll have days of being direct and exact, but they're both going to be at 8 degrees for a while. I think it was almost 2 weeks. And that immediately follows this Mercury-Mars conjunction. And that can tell me one of two things, that the disruptive thing that is coming through literally becomes a big part of our mindset. We have to deep dive, we have to research it, we have to understand it, we have to sink our teeth into something. And once we have a good understanding, we can move with it. Like it's an inspiration that we have to really deep dive, learn, and do things about. It becomes a big thing that we're stuck on mentally for weeks. But for other people, if it is the health disruption, it's more along the lines of sitting and spinning our wheels, trying to figure out, I don't know what's wrong. What do you mean? Something wrong in the belly, that you're feeling something. There's nothing in the scan. There's nothing in the labs. What do you mean? They're screaming in pain. Obviously, something is wrong. Obviously, something is wrong. So we got to continue to search. We got to continue to look. We got to continue to do our research. We've got to think outside the box. And it is going to be something that literally starts to capture our mind after the events of this week. We got to get through this week. And I'm going to be honest, I have a big block to this week. So I know whatever comes through has to come through a very specific way. And I'm just ready for Jupiter in its retrograde. I'm very hopeful for once Jupiter turns direct. But I know everybody's in different places. Everybody is in a different mentality. Everybody is dealing with different emotions. But so much of these unresolved emotions keep getting brought up to the surface. So we will finally choose something different. It's pushing our buttons for the reason. And it's giving us the chance. It is giving us the chance to make different choices. The problem is a lot of people are struggling with the different choices. But I do feel like for some people with that Mercury-Mars conjunction, you will in fact make a different choice. But you will automatically kind of be tested as to if that was the right choice or not. And some of you, you're going to be very stuck and focused, like, nope, this is what I'm doing. And it will have to remain that way for a while. But there are elements to this week that are, again, not gut punches, but kind of in the gut check. And I'm not, yes, I know that goes into the health stuff, but it's still just kind of that normal layman's term energy around it too. There's just little things to teach us something, to test our faith, little checks to see if we're handling something differently, if we're willing to do something differently, if we're willing to accept accountability, if we're willing to finally draw a line, if we're willing to finally create new rules, process, and boundaries the way that we need to, and knowing that the minute we start to enforce that on the other side, people don't like change. I say it all the time. I make fun of fixed signs for it. Y'all don't like change. But change is so freaking necessary for us to be able to work through what we work through, get through what we get through. And this is a worked element week. We got a lot of work to do. And there's still an element of disruption by the end of it. Pivotal disruption or chaotic disruption, I'm not entirely sure, but it sets the mood for next week. And whenever we get into next week, we end eclipse season, and we end the Mercury retrograde. So we got to figure out as we get through this week, what's setting the mood and what's setting the tone. Because again, there's a little bit of gut checks, but gut check and gut punch is not the same. It's just not. So be aware of that. There's a lot of focus on Jupiter this week and what's going on in Jupiter's signs to make us see where we need to do something and how we do something differently from this point forward. So be aware of that. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.